seems that the self-created Lord has killed the extroversial Indriyas. They run after external objects, not the internal one. Only those wise persons who seek immortality withdraw their senses from external objects and realize the supreme entity lying covert within. The shloka argues that the Indriyas as a general rule, have a natural tendency to move outwards, whereas to attain Ishvara the Indriyas must move inwardly. From this it may appear that Svayambhu, the self-created Lord, the supreme entity, does not at all like the Indriyas. That is, that in all human beings the Indriyas should be annihilated, that this is what Svayambhu wants, but this is not true. The underlying spirit of the shloka is that the Indriyas should move inwardly, not outwardly, as I already explained. Mortality and immortality. But those who want Amritattva, immortality, what will they do? They will just reverse the movement of their Indriyas. A question may be asked here, what is Amritattva? But before that, we should explain what Marana, mortality, death is. Marana means change. Death is nothing but a change. A 5-year-old child is transformed in due course into a 15-year-old boy. In 10 years the child becomes the boy. Thereafter you will never be able to find the body of the 5-year-old child. So the child's body has certainly died. So Marana means change, because of the physical transformation. The earlier body has become difficult to trace. Likewise, after another 10 years, the boy will be transformed into a youth. After some time more, the same youth will become a middle-aged man, and still later he will become an old infirm man. The same one entity has moved through a series of transformations, and in the process every earlier form has undergone change, metamorphosis, some kind of death. When finally the physical body of the old man undergoes a still more radical transformation, he will be reborn as a new baby. This stage of radical transformation we call death. The previous changes we did not consider death. Because we could link the early stages to the later stages. We could say that the 15-year-old adolescent had grown up into a 25-year-old youth. We could find the link, but when an old infirm gentleman becomes reborn as a child, we cannot find the link. That is why we give the last change of the body of the old man the name death. The rest of the changes we do not call death, but in fact all the changes qualify as death. And this is not all. You know what death is? Death means the total cessation of all the vibrations of the human body. The heart has ceased to function, the lungs have ceased to function, the veins, the arteries. In fact, every organ of the physical body has stopped functioning, pulsating, vibrating. Every organ has stopped vibrating. The afferent nerves and efferent nerves have stopped receiving any order or sensation. This is a kind of pause, which in common parlance may be called death. But if it is considered death, then we will come to see that human beings are dying every day, many times a day. All the movements taking place in us is in life. Movements in nerves, veins, arteries, the brain are always systolic, that is, speed is followed by pause, which again is followed by speed. The movement is not continuous. When you walk along a road, you never walk ceaselessly. While you lift one foot, the other foot is on the ground. There is a slight gap between the placing of one foot on the ground and the lifting of the other foot. There is a time gap between the two. During that intervening period, you remain in a motionless state. Thus, while you are walking, you are not walking all the time. Similarly, when you are running, you are not running all the time. You are running and pausing, running and pausing. When both your feet touch the ground, that is a state of motionlessness. And if not for a similar brief motionlessness, nobody could hop on one foot. When we see somebody hopping on one foot, we will see that after that foot has come down, there is a pause before it comes up again. So no motion is unbroken, it is always broken by certain gaps. In the case of respiration also, after human beings inhale, they do not immediately exhale. They retain the breath inside for a while, and then they exhale. Similarly, after exhaling, they do not immediately inhale. They stop for a little while, and then only do they inhale. So in both cases, there is a pause for a short while. The first pause after inhalation is called Purna Kumbhaka, and the second pause after exhalation is called Shunya Kumbhaka. These are states of pause, not of speed. A state of pause is nothing but a state of death, because in that state of pause every function is suspended, every vibration is suspended. At that time the vibrations of all objects of this universe remain in you in seed form, but not yet fully accepted or assimilated. The vibrations have no doubt reached you in seed form, but the understanding of them, that is, the acceptance of them, will come later. Every day, every human being dies approximately 24,000 times. The breath is taken in, but not released. Then it is released, but not taken in. So everyone dies about 24,000 times a day. But in what we actually call death, what happens is that once the breath has been released, it comes back again after an interval of 1 year or 1 month or 1 day, or 100,000 years, instead of 1 second. This is the only difference. So death means a kind of change, and through the extroversial movement of the Indriyas, we perceive only that world which is changeable. But those who want to realize the unchangeable, the immortal, must transcend these winds of change. Only the entity which undergoes no change is the immortal entity. In philosophy, we know that any object coming within the scope of relativity, that is, within the scope of time, place, and person, is subject to change. What is the entity which is beyond the scope of time, place, and person? That entity is Paramatma. So except for Paramatma, all objects of this universe are mortal. So to be established in immortality, what will one have to do? One will have to awaken one's pointed intellect, and in due course that awakened pointed intellect will merge into supreme consciousness, Paramashaitanya. This is the state of attainment of immortality, and one who attempts to attain this supreme immortal stance is called a Dhira. Dhira means one who introverts his or her indriyas for the purpose of attaining the highest goal. Dhiras are the only really intelligent people, not others. Freedom from samsara and the death noose. It has been said in the scriptures, Krishna Nam Harinam Barai Marur. Yeyan Krishna Baye Se Bara Shatur. Narottam Das. The name of the Supreme Lord is very sweet, very elevating. Those who take his holy name are very clever indeed. Those who take the name of the Lord are really intelligent and clever, because thereby they accelerate the speed of their spiritual progress. Those who do not do so continue to move in the vicious circle of lives and deaths. This cyclical order of movement from life to death to life again is called the samsara chakra. Atadira amritatva viditva dhruva madhruvi veshviha na pratayante. Wise persons knowing the path of immortality seek only the dhruva, not the adhruva entities. What will be the fate of a person who directs all his psychic propensities towards crude materiality? He or she will be caught again and again in the serpentine noose of death. According to the scriptures, the Mrityupasha death noose consists of 3.5 coils. The first occurs just after birth. The baby has undergone great trouble in its mother's womb. As its birth approaches, it becomes more and more anxious in its heart to get out. And when it finally does issue forth and experiences the light and air of the world, its reaction on the one hand is, "Ah, I'm saved, I have come to a nice place." Yet on the other hand, in spite of the suffering the baby underwent in the womb for such a long time, tears come to its eyes at having to leave all that behind. This situation is likened to that of a dog when it chews a dry bone. The bone contains nothing, no marrow, no flesh, nothing. While chewing that dry bone, its lips gets cut, and blood oozes out. And when the poor dog tastes the blood, it thinks that it is tasting blood from the bone, and licks even more. If you forcibly snatch the dry bone from the dog will whimper because it will feel that its food is being taken away. The dog fails to understand that actually you have done something good for it. The suffering of birth is like the suffering of the dog at that moment. The second coil is the suffering one undergoes through one's life. There is some pain, some clash hidden in everything. In your own life you will experience very few days which are free from mental pain, few days in which there is not at least a little sorrow, a little suffering. And the third coil is the suffering of death. There are many people in the world who have never seen days of happiness at all, and yet they do not want to die. So we have the affliction of birth, the affliction of life, the affliction of death. When people recognize the affliction, yet are unwilling to part from it, that attachment is the last coil. These 3.5 coils constitute the Mrityu Pasha. Pasha means that which binds. Parashaha kaman anuyanti balaste mrityo yanti vita tasya pasham. Unintelligent people run after extravertial objects, thereby they fall into the all-entangling death noose. Those persons who are Dhiras by nature know where immortality lies, and as such they know how to distinguish the Dhruva from the Adhruva. They never run after transient objects, discarding the supreme eternal treasure.